So apparently Marathon has been stealing the art for their game. And this is just unbelievable. The amount of things that have come out about this game. And I wanted it to work so bad. I played all the Halos, played all of the Destinies. I even got this out. I have a sealed Taken King Destiny 1 for the 360 just because it's one of my favorite expansions of any game and one of my favorite moments of any game. Just playing the Dreadnought and the Taken King raids and all of that. And this Marathon game, it just keeps getting worse and worse. And with other games, with all the other extractions and arc raiders out there, this is just getting bad at this point.
This situation keeps getting crazier and crazier. Essentially, yesterday, it was brought to our attention that an artist had a lot of their art stolen to create many assets within Marathon. And not just things within Marathon, but including the ARG. Inspiration's not even the word. It was a straight up copy pasta. Someone took that shit, plugged it, including the ARG. Inspiration's not even the word. It was a straight up copy pasta. Someone took that shit, plugged it as their own shit, and you can't deny the fact that anti-real
just
art
side by
was
this is just insane.
In some ways the core identity for what Marathon is, especially for the ARG. So this is from the Marathon dev team. This was posted last night at 11:21 p.m. We immediately investigated concern regarding unauthorized use of artist decals in Marathon and confirmed that a former Bungie artist included these in a texture sheet that was ultimately used in game. This issue was unknown by our existing art team, and we are still reviewing how this oversight occurred. We take matters like this very seriously. We have reached out to Anti-Real to discuss this issue and are committed to do right by the artists.
Yeah, it's just, there's a few problems here. There's a big difference between taking the inspiration or like seeing something and designing art based off the inspiration of it and designing the entire aesthetic of the game around this. And I would be surprised if he's compensated to equal the value that he provided to them. And for those of you who don't know, Marathon's had a very, very bumpy development cycle. Same with Destiny. You know, trying to make this game while trying to keep Destiny afloat and finishing off the Destiny main story. I believe they switched the leads of the game as well.
As a matter of policy,
and I guess some of the designers were also switched. So this is kind of like a Avowed where it started as one thing and ended up as another.
We do not use the work of artists without their permission. To prevent similar issues in the future, we are conducting a thorough review of our in-game assets, specifically those done by the former Bungie artists, and implementing stricter checks to document all artist contributions. We value
But they did use someone else's art.
Creativity and dedication of all artists who contribute to our games, and we are committed to doing right by them. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Yesterday, we left after we originally covered this, thinking that maybe it was a third party. To be quite honest with you, from a PR stance, it would have been better if it was a third party. Turns out that wasn't the case. It was someone directly working at Bungie. So Lucky brings up a great point right here. What about the current Marathon employees and art team that literally follow the artists on this app?
Yeah, it would have been better if they had another team working with them that they could have put in the blame on.
Art team follows the artist that has been developing this art style for 10 plus years.
Oh, geez. Yeah, this is the bad part.
This isn't an oopsie you can blame on a former employee. Your current employees follow the small artist with a niche style, and then you just coincidentally happen to launch an entire game themed after it, not buying it. Yes, many of the Marathon developers follow this artist. Guys, this isn't
that's a problem.
That was posted last year. You know what I mean? This was art that was posted in 2017. Before Marathon was even announced.
September 2017, and that is the year that Destiny 2 released. This art was posted about 2 weeks after, or 3 weeks after Destiny 2
before Marathon
launched.
was even in development. It'd be one thing, it was like, oh, I came across these images randomly when surfing internet and came across this, but you're following the person directly, dude. All right, so anyways.
Yeah, like you can't hide that. Like you're following him on the platform that he literally posted the art on.
We got that, right? And then Anti-Real has now replied, completely overwhelmed by the response to this. Thank you so much for the support, and especially to those who have donated. It helps enormously. So again, this is her art. Can you imagine? I just want to just back up real quick. Because look, some people were commenting yesterday when we were first covering this and was like, why does this even matter? And it's like, all right, I'm not an artistic person. I can't draw worth the shit. You know what I mean?
You have other people donating to the artist to cover the expenses of a company that, how much did they sell for again? For a company that was sold for $3.7 billion to Sony.
I think the most I think I've ever done is I drew SpongeBob. Let me just say this. I want to say there's a distinct difference between the teams here, but the Marathon team, they have stepped in a pile of shit, man. I could never even envision how big the pile could have been, the potential of this pile of shit. But it is the largest pile of shit. The only other thing that could possibly happen that would be worse than this is like the Marathon story was stolen too.
This is bad, and there's been a lot with it, you know. Like I was saying with the Valder, this game has changed a lot. We saw it with the trailers, and they brought in all the hero elements to it.
You know, or some shit like that. You know what I mean?
And they kind of changed the overall aesthetic of the game, which is also kind of alarming. That they claim that this aesthetic that they have was from someone that worked with the original design that's no longer with the company. But
hold on, let me pull up this article. Bungie still in Marathon Artist, probably the last straw, by Paul Tassi right here. This article was posted this morning, actually just a few minutes ago. Marathon
it could
Bungie
be
has been accused of and has now admitted to stealing artwork used in the current build of Marathon from an artist who first published the work in 2017. That artist is Antiro, who posted several comparisons of her work and existing Bungie Marathon assets, which go far beyond inspiration and often.
Because let's be honest, we've seen a lot of games launch and fail as of late, and even if the game is decent and good and changed from the alpha, we haven't even seen the full game yet, but even if it did launch, what do you think the odds are that it gets backlash immediately?
Directed one-to-one lifts of images, words, symbols, and even Antiro's own personal logo. Guys, do you understand?
Because if you play Destiny 2, you know they've launched things and they haven't worked. Destiny 2's launch wasn't great by any means, but they made changes, they made DLCs, and similar to Destiny 1, you know, the game's launches weren't perfect. They kind of lacked content, and they slowly started adding DLCs and fixing them. This game cannot afford a poor launch. It can't. And this has been a pattern with them, honestly, since Destiny started. You know, they launch something, it starts rough, and then they start making changes. Destiny 2, it just didn't have the content for the end game section to stay afloat. It just was nothing for a while. But they slowly changed that and started adding modes that had replay value.
Understand what's being said.
This game cannot afford that, though, I don't think. You know, there's a difference between the final DLC of a game that has gone on forever and one of the more consistent live service games compared to what this launch is, especially with Arc Raiders coming out.
The copying was so blatant that the artist who copied it forgot to remove the logo. It's amateur hour.
Oh my god.
Shit. I'm not saying I would be good at stealing stuff, but Jesus, you can't even scrub the damn logo? Bungie's, of course, not.
And if you, like, why would you even go? You're owned by Sony. You sold for so much. You're such a big company. Why not just pay the artist? Like, wouldn't this backlash be far worse than just paying the artist whatever it would have cost to bring him on?
Obligated to hire me when making a game that draws overwhelmingly from the same design language I have refined for the last decade, but clearly my work was good enough to pillage for ideas and plaster all over the game without pay or attribution. Within a matter of hours, as this began to spread virally, Bungie issued a statement saying it was a former Bungie artist who included the details in a texture sheet that ultimately went into the game. The issue was supposedly unknown by the existing art team, but obviously many questions have been raised about all of this as Bungie continues to investigate. There's no disrupting the asset rips. They are one-to-one in many cases that are clear to see. The result of that, if Bungie will simply cut the artist a check and credit them, is unclear. It's possible that legal action could be pursued. Here,
bare minimum.
did not seem to think they had the
cutting them a check is bare minimum for the entire aesthetic of a live service game for Sony. They have amazing exclusive single-player games. They don't have that exclusive multiplayer game. They've been in search of it forever. Concord failed. This is, of course, the game that everyone compares that to. I don't think that's a fair comparison, but with how much money has been put into Bungie and the goals of this game, a simple check I don't think cuts it for stealing the aesthetic.
Resources that mount the campaign. That could change, given the attention that the story has now gotten. I mean, look, as much inspiration is being drawn here, needs a permanent job, at least.
Yeah.
And a check. However, there are now larger questions being raised about Anti-Real and Marathon's overall aesthetic. Looking at the image gallery of the work, the design language the artist mentions could easily be early concepts are for Marathon designs if you didn't know any better, from the images themselves to even the cool color palette.
Yeah, and the thing with this is, I saw this on Reddit. This is art that they had used 11 years ago. This wasn't, obviously, it never made it in. This isn't for Marathon per se, but and as you can see here, they didn't steal the entire game from them. Obviously, some of their designs were in place, the aesthetic, but this, what they did was blatant. So like, there is a defense that they had this idea.
Cyberpunk influences in media, I've yet to see anything that's close to the gap between this work and Marathon. And obviously, there were directly pieces lifted straight from it. So Bungie had its eye on it in some capacity. They're following her. They were following her. An additional wrinkle is that it's been discovered several Bungie employees have been following the account, including Game's current art director who followed her for years, she said, without any communication from him or anyone else at Bungie. Her work went up in 2017. By most accounts, Marathon started development around 2018 in some capacity. Taking a vibe as opposed to exact pieces is harder, if not impossible to prove, but in this case, perceptions could be becoming reality. The narrative is hardening. Marathon, among many criticisms,
Yeah, to say the least.
at least had its unique art style and aesthetic as a bright spot. That's Paul. What a great point. What a great point, dude. You may, I will say some things look unrendered, but the unique art style and aesthetic in terms of like character design and like the art style they're trying to go for in that direction, I think the character designs themselves, I'm pretty sure those are Joe Cross's his designs, right?
And like I was just saying, this is his art from 11 years ago. You can see that, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a bright spot. I like the design of Marathon. I think it's pretty cool. I would say it's unique. I think, because a lot of the criticism they faced after the alpha was the design of the game. Was it too similar to Concord? Were the characters? It's definitely a unique looking game, but it did face some backlash on the changes they made from initial leaks to the launch of the alpha.
It's just like the ARG especially looks so similar to Anti-Real's images. And that was front and center for everybody for multiple weeks for us to look at. Now it's going to be impossible to bring it up in the future without the plagiarism being referenced. And even if it's just a handful of assets that were ripped, it would be very hard to get around the theory that a lot of the initial conceptual aesthetic was directly from this one artist.
Yeah.
I believe it is too early to start naming and blaming specific individuals within Bungie, but the studio will need to do an intense investigation into this and come out with a lengthy explanation in addition to the terms they've come to.
Yeah, I think Bungie's gonna do it themselves. But even so, it's their fault. Like, this is their game. They're way too big of a company. They've made way too many games and projects to do something like this
With the artist publicly, and they may promise this will not happen in the future, but it has now happened 4 times in the past 4 years. The others with Destiny fan art that was lifted in some capacity for the game or in merchandise.
4 times in the past 4 years.
Contractors, however, and this is Bungie in-house. That's what makes this a bigger deal, guys. The previous deaths was third parties. This was in-house. This is somebody on the payroll.
Yeah, this is far worse than Destiny's because you could blame another team. Like, we hired this team and they're the ones who did it. It could easily get done without you knowing it. This was people that worked within Bungie.
Man, working for you direct, working in, you see where I'm coming from? That's why this is a bigger deal. This is a bigger deal than Ace of Spades. I've had serious doubts about Marathon's ultimate viability in the PvP extraction shooter market for a while now, doubly so after an underwhelming closed alpha a few weeks back. But the clues
And with our creators, man.
The one point of pride about how cool the design, work, and aesthetic is.
We're going to talk about a game that's perceived the complete opposite of how this is being perceived right now.
And this perception now seemingly etched in stone. It feels almost back-breaking. It is certainly true that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of artists who have worked on Marathon and have nothing to do with this at all, producing their own original work, but the well is now poisoned. Oh, that's a great point. Marathon is supposed to have a ride-along alpha feedback session with game director Joe Ziegler today, which was already moved once, and it's a little hard to imagine that's not going to be overwhelmed by this story. And I can only imagine that chat will be like, so we'll see if this moved again. Yeah, we're going to be watching that later today, guys. It will be Joe Ziegler. It will be some of the Marathon devs, and we'll be watching that and talking about some things. And I know the focus, it was supposed to be last Friday. I know the focus was supposed to be on just gameplay. But I'm almost certain, dude, that chat is going to be full of people. It may be an email.
It's gonna be bad.
Dude,
That's what I'm saying. It's just I don't know if they can come back from this sort of thing. They can. They certainly can, but will they? I think is the better way to word it. Because they've bounced back from bad launches before. When things go poorly, they slowly make changes, listen to the people eventually. I don't know if they get an eventually with this game, though.
I feel bad for Joe what he's about to walk into. Dude, because Joe, this guy is just, I tell you right now, Joe's just, his Valorant background, he's just gaming. He's just constantly just like refining systems, trying to get the gameplay loop down. I highly doubt Joe was like, yeah, steal that art. This Joe, you know,
yeah.
Joe crosses over art.
Yeah, it's just someone, whoever the checks and balances, doing things in a professional manner. That's what's in question here.
The game director, not that this shouldn't have been caught. Obviously, it should have been caught, but he's about to walk in hellfire today, dude.
Yeah.
This is Auntie Real's portfolio. You know, some of her artwork. Can I just say this, guys? I think she has a very unique style. And I completely understand why people at Bungie follow her. I like her style so much. I think, you know, I was talking to Luke about it. We'll see if we can get in touch with her. We've done some like merch stuff in the past, but we don't really have like a true merch line. I would love to set something up with Auntie Real. I know she's got a lot of stuff on her plate right now, but dude, I think she would make some killer merch. You know what I mean? We'll see.
What I don't get is I would just love to know from an art designer that works maybe in game development. Maybe it's a little bit different than other fields, but how would this work? Because there's a big difference between what they did and taking inspiration. So, and even if you were trying to copy someone's art, it wouldn't. I'm wondering if they were intending on hiring this person, and then they just went ahead and started using the art and just never hired the person. Because in some of these instances, it just looks that one-to-one.
And hopefully things pan out. But we'll continue to monitor this story.
Right now, Bungie is facing the plagiarism accusations after an artist claimed the marathon closed alpha.
Like, let's be honest. How do you think this game, the launch of this game, it's probably not going to be great.
2017 poster designs. Okay, let's see what this is. You can check out the side-by-side comparisons as well. So this one's very easy to tell, right? If this is the image that this...
you in elementary school could copy someone else's work better than whatever.
Like, this one to me is the smoking gun. Is Aleph even a word? A-L-E-P-H. Like, look at these images here, and then look at those images. Keep in mind, Bungie is known to steal art before with Destiny 2. It's the same icons. It's a one-to-one, and then you have
this is worse.
These little arrows here. And then look at the 2B right there, the 28, I mean. Even with the numbers right there.
Yeah. They just didn't... Like, yeah, change this 2B, 28. Like that.
You can see like the numbers match as well. If there were one or
that
two
is blatant
examples of like a one-to-one with this, I wouldn't have really had an opinion about it. The problem is that there's like 15 or 20 different examples about this. So this is the person, the Marathon Alpha released recently, and the environments are covered with assets lifted from poster designs I made in 2017. Man, I don't have the resources nor the energy to spare to pursue this legally, and I've lost count the number of times a major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer to imitate or steal my work rather than write me an email. That really sucks, man. Yeah, I think
it does, but I'm so glad that this is getting look, almost 8 million views at this point. That's great, honestly. Just the overall reaction that this has gotten. I think it's so good when it's this blatant. That's the problem. You know, there's like that line you can walk where inspiration and stealing things, that's a little tricky that some artists do. And then there's this.
Should give them some money. It's probably one lazy artist that threw them in the game. If you're a lazy artist and you did that, you should get fired. You just put this company in a potentially multi-million-dollar liability law.
And we know that he's no longer with them. Obviously, this wasn't why he was fired because if it was, they would have fixed it.
Suit of copyright infringement. And that's not even counting bad PR. Yeah. What are other people saying? How does this keep happening at Bungie? It's like every year there's a new case of someone's art being lifted. Don't delete any posts, man. Might get a pro bono on this one. Honestly, if I was a lawyer and I saw this, I mean, I feel like this is a pretty easy case. It's like 1-to-1, right? I mean, holy shit. And you know
2B to 28. They just extended the line and added that to the end of it.
Surprises me at all, because you have these over-designed, bro. Like this is it's so part of the graphics and everything from Bungie and like Marathon look really good, but the character designs specifically are just so mediocre and bad that I don't even know what to say. And at least Concord didn't plagiarize. I wish they had.
This isn't good, and you can see like this is that designer's art concepts from 11 years ago. So the fact that it's Bungie, they had the idea for the game already. Obviously they tried making, obviously the 90s they had Marathon, but they already had an idea of what they wanted this game to look like. They had the core of the game. This was so unnecessary for them to do. I can't imagine this launch goes well in September. But hey, at least there's art creators.